Well, thank you, Dan. First of all, thank you so much to the Kirk Centre and to Ludovica University. Thank you to Jeff. Thank you to Ferenc and to you, Dan, for the invitation. It's a real privilege to be at a gathering here of some friends, some new acquaintances, and like-minded people, people who care about the preservation of the permanent things. So it's just a joy to be here. My first time in Michigan. This is now my 15th state I think I visited. So my kids are quite that Daddy's ticking them off one by one. So that's great. And it doesn't count if you just get a connecting flight in the state. That doesn't count. That's not correct. You've got to have had dinner or had a conversation or, something like that. Or gone on holiday. So, in a way, I'm going to have to be on and off with these things because I'm getting to that age. These are brand new glasses because I'm getting to that age where I have to do this. I think what I want to say today, I'm not going to read a paper. It's not my practice. It wasn't how I was trained, although it was a wonderful practice. And it's been so great to hear the quality of the works read today, the papers read, and the precision of language and the rhetorical flourishes and the tight conclusions drawn. So I think the scholarship on this side of the pond is excellent. So it's just wonderful to hear that. But it's not my way. It's not how I was trained by Lord Plant. And so I will. I have done my reading and I have my arguments, and I'm going to just talk and then make some observations and then suggest. I don't know. Well, once I've made my diagnosis, I'm going to offer a prescription. Well, and if whether you choose to take that prescription is up to you, but all liabilities on yourself. Anyway, so I guess many of us in this room are either university teachers, or we've been through college, or we are perhaps doctoral candidates, or we are adjacent to higher education. And we all therefore know that the culture wars are real, the culture wars are on our campuses. Probably, it's fair to say, in a sense, historically, from the study of culture wars, when James Davison Hunter's book first came out, first time really to sort of like popularize that term, you could say that the culture wars really occur on campus, and they occur in the minds of intellectuals in the post-war era, and in the incredibly influential books and academic journal series and that they publish. And who are the they, Matt? You're saying they. Well, I don't want to be too partisan in the sense that a war has to have belligerents and co-belligerents. So it can't just be one person fighting against himself. That's the pathology. It's not really a war. And so, yes, I guess what I'm really getting at when I refer to culture wars, I'm not talking about the healthy disagreement that liberals and conservatives have on a whole manner of things. Division and difference is not polarization. Polarization is a special thing. It's a different category. Polarization is a necessary opposition of worldviews. I think what I mean and understand when I talk about culture wars is where we have not two branches of the same family, maybe once removed, a cranky uncle and an odd second cousin disagreeing about certain things. I guess what I mean when I talk about culture wars is where you've had different civilizational projects proposed in the West, in the post-war era, by incredibly influential intellectuals right across the world in general, in particular the Anglosphere. And in my own country, I might think of the Communist Party History Group, with the likes of Eric Hobsbawm and E.P. Thompson and Dorothy Thompson and Donna Torr and John Saville, Christopher Hill. But you could also, and we should also think about the Frankfurt School, and we should think about the likes of not just Adorno and Horkheimer, but particularly, I think, much more influentially, Herbert Marcuse. And then to some extent, although thank goodness, didn't have a great deal of landing in philosophy in Britain, had a dreadful impact on the humanities in terms of English literature. You have the post-structuralists of the like of Michel Foucault and Jacques Derrida et al., and on and on and on. So these are the kind of intellectuals and these kind of people who are seeking to remake society. They're seeking to move on from a classical Marxist class-based revolution, and they're seeking to engage intellectual young people on the campus through books. Now, I don't want to talk any more about that because I think we all know that story. The story I want to talk about is what's happening now on our campuses, and how should we perhaps respond? That's the prescription. So what is happening now on campuses? Well, we have huge debates about the parameters of lawful speech. Now, of course, we friends from different countries in this room, predominantly Americans. There might be some Canadians. There are some Brits. There are some Hungarians, and everywhere else. But in Britain and America, there's different jurisprudential cultures and territories, and so lawful speech and the parameters thereof are protected by different things, either by a constitutional mechanism in one sense, or by statute, let alone common law in England. And that is really the area of contestation. The great area of contestation in culture wars and universities is around speech, because thought is primary, speech is secondary, but speech is a very early secondary for all human interaction, let alone education. Thought comes first. Speech is the outworking of that thought. So the cultural pressures that students feel on the campuses is because that someone has said to them, you ought not say that, or you ought not to have that opinion, or they might say to the professor, that book ought not to be taught, or we shouldn't hire that person. We shouldn't hire them, but they're excellently credentialed. Yes, I know, but they don't think the right things, and they give donations to the wrong organizations and things like that. So this is the actual stuff, the actual bones of some of the cultural issues. It's around speech, it's around thought, but it's also around the nature of the university itself. And I think Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff are right about this, and about the coddling of the American mind, when they say that and when Haidt said initially, particularly when he did that lecture back in sort of 1617, I think it was at Duke University, when he made the point about the nature, the telos of the Western university, but particularly in North America, is changing from one that has sought to liberty of the academic, very much in that kind of Kirkian sense of pursuing truth, and just whether that's aesthetic truth, scientific truth, or when we're trying to rank stronger and weaker poetry, or whatever it might be. That sense of truth, which is ensconced in an understanding of the scholar, teacher, and the liberty of his work, of her work, and the student to take that option module, that upper class module, and to pursue it, versus a model of, as they say, the social justice U. In other words, that the university starts with a whole range of normative perspectives. Now, I'll give you one example. You might think this is a little bit trite, but it's the sort of thing that gets my goat. My own university, the University of Hull, which I'm very glad to be employed in, and I've got wonderful colleagues, has the Ukrainian flag flying from it. Now, I have huge personal sympathy with the plight of Ukrainians in the conflict with Russia, absolutely. But I don't think it's the proper business of a public university in England to raise the flag of any other country apart from the United Kingdom. I would be fine with it also having St. George's flag, because Kingston upon Hull, last time I checked, is in England. That's also fine. The nation of England is not a country, it's a nation. And I'm absolutely fine with it also flying the city flag, or at the flag of the East Riding of Yorkshire. That's also fine, because that is the first person plural, as Sir Roger would say. That is the we. So it doesn't matter whether you're from Nigeria, like some of our MA students are, or whether you're from Vietnam, or whether you're from Oman, or whether you're from Hungary and you're a student at the University of Hull. By being a student at the university, you are part of the we. you're part of that community, and that's wonderful. It should be intellectual and in the proper liberal sense of an open liberal education. What we should not be doing, and what our university administrators should not do, for it is not their business, is be raising the flags of other countries on their buildings. Even if we, and I'd say I'm going to assume that most of my faculty colleagues have a disposition towards the plight of the Ukrainian people in the war against Putin's Russia. Now, I'm just giving that as an example of social justice, of like a social justice take, or in other words, or activism take that the university ought not do. So that's one. I think there's about speech. There's something there about the social justice university. There's also, we all know this, there's a whole range of subjects which are just kind of, sort of like ruled off or forbidden or what have you. Whole debate in the United Kingdom has been about sort of gender ideology. That's been a huge one. For a couple of years ago, it was about BLM and critical race theory and all those sorts of things. And so this is the milieu, this is the atmosphere, this is the climate in which young men and women are trying to navigate study and proper thinking. And this is serious. So what can be done? Well, if we take the work of Sir Roger, if we take the work of Russell Kirk, they both wrote a lot about education, as has been said. They wrote huge amounts about the culture and cultural conflict. So it can't be summarized in about 4 minutes or 3 minutes or however long I've got left. But what I can say, I think, is I think we can draw from their traditions a range of things that are a prescription for the future, are a prescription for, especially those of us in this room who might be in more hostile environments. So I was talking to Bracey, my friend Bracey. Now, Bracey's at Christendom. Now, Bracey doesn't have some of those issues that I face at Hull. He does it, just the nature of it, the size of it, the Catholic, conservative nature. Dan's at Buckingham, or Buckingham is the only private university we have in the United Kingdom, in England, I beg pardon. And Mrs. T helped sort of set it up and everything. Now they have had their issues. They've had their issues with their vice chancellor, and he's not, all of that's been sorted out. But it's less of an issue at Hull. I don't know. Maybe friends would say in the Q&A. I don't imagine in Ludovica some of these things are quite as spicy as they are perhaps if you're a conservative at Berkeley, or if you're in Hull, or if you're at Oxford, right? Okay, yeah, you know where I'm going with this. Mm-hmm. So what's the prescription? We've got a mixed economy of people and their experiences as conservatives, who have conservative students or classical liberal students in the culture war. So what's this prescription that you can draw, Matt, from these two traditions of Sir Roger and from Russell Kirk? Well, I think the first thing is, and we do this, and I think this conference has been testament to this point, take ideas seriously. You take the ideas of your interlocutors, whether it's your, as Dan likes to do on Twitter sometimes, here are my top 10 thinkers that have influenced me, here are my top 5 conservative thinkers. He likes to do that, that's fine. But you take ideas seriously. If the people, you should be reading liberally. You should be reading people who challenge your ideas. You should be reading people who challenge your theological, religious, political perspective. To read the canon is not one thing. Whatever subject you're in, the Western canon is not hermetically sealed. It has room for entry. Some things we discard and we bring back in. And the canon doesn't have a particular perspective. That's why all these folks get themselves tied up in knots about the canon is somehow this dreadful thing. No one has sat to begin with to think, okay, the Western canon, it has to have people of this perspective or that perspective. It isn't itself intellectually diverse. And we should be people who want not just to encourage our students to read canonical books, but we should also be people who should say that in and of itself is a way to model what proper learning and proper education is. It's not being fearful of people who have different views to ourselves. Take ideas seriously. Keep the conversation going. What do you mean? It's very easy in faculty. It's very easy in a classroom to stop talking to people who disagree with you. I don't talk to them, they're Democrats, or I don't talk to them because they're voting green. No, that's not healthy, that's no good. Also, those of us who are parents, we can learn the fact that people change their mind over time. Children change their mind. If children didn't change their mind, we wouldn't keep trying to instruct them until they do what we want them to do. People change their mind. People change their mind. Keep the conversation going. Okay, perfect. Nearly done. Model those local practices that you want to see. So my good friend here, my colleague Chris Fear, when he's just sets up his new course called Political Thought of the Right, he gets students to read pretty much only primary texts. So he's modeling that which he wants. Okay, and this is the last two things I want to say. Number one, you've got to enjoy it. You've got to be positive and you've got to enjoy it. Yes, there is a place for being having a rearguard action, and often in a lot of the big public universities and the elite private schools, people who think like we do are in the absolute minority, and many aren't getting hired, and many of these brilliant doctoral students are not going to get hired in places like that. But where we find ourselves, be positive, enjoy it. I think wouldn't that be great if there was sort of like a traditional conservative perspective, and you can see this in Roger Scruton and Russell Kirk. These men love their work and they love their life. That's quite infectious. It's quite attractive to see people enjoying the debate and the learning. It fires people up. You've got to enjoy it. There are hard tasks and hard days. You've got to enjoy it. And finally, I think the thing about it for me, the last thing I want to say is that we don't fully appreciate the impact that we have. We're often not given a vantage point to see the impact we have. Well, Matt, I'm the only conservative in my faculty out of 30, 40 people. I know it's a very hostile environment. It's difficult. And sure, it is difficult. But the bottom line is that you don't know the impact that you have on your students, on that doctoral candidate, on that undergraduate. You don't know what they're going to go on to do. And the fact that you've been a lone voice, like you, Harvey Mansfield or something like that, Harvard, you don't know the impact you'll have. So be positive, be optimistic, model the local practices you want to see to conserve and preserve the best of liberal learning, the best of the permanent things. Thanks very much.